Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and having just been away in Brisbane fighting the 13 kilo robots that we saw last week, I thought it'd be a good idea to go away again, but this time we are going to Melbourne and fighting ant weight robots. So normally I wouldn't do this, but there is a brand new club starting up in Melbourne, and they are kind of just getting themselves off the ground. They're aiming for kind of every other month as well, and they're not too far away from me. So I thought I'd head on over to Melbourne, see what designs people were fighting over there, and yeah, just check things out a little bit. To take over with me, I kind of very quickly revamped Make Like a Tree, my 150 gram ring spinner. I turned it into a flail bot though, using an ABS printed ring, just to hopefully mean that we didn't break that ring quite a lot. I also kind of handmade some flails and attached those flails via rubber bands, which was interesting because when I spun the thing up for the first time, I took up half of the arena space. Have a look at this.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa, this goes out a fair way.
So before the first fight, I had to take a couple of rubber bands out of that link so that I wasn't taking up just a massive amount of space in the arena when I was swinging those things around. Because entanglement weapons are kind of illegal in this sport, so that's basically what those would have become. I also took over Microdot, which is my my big green triple pointed wedge, and we had a bit of fun. So let us check out some fights. So my first fight was against Dynamo. So having gone all the way over to Melbourne, I ended up fighting a robot from Adelaide. And in actual fact, it's not actually driven by Dynamo's original driver. It was given to somebody else as a bit of a lone robot, I guess. So they got to drive this guy around, at least for this particular fight. And as you can see here, my ring just decided not to spin up. So by going through and messing around with things and changing the flail distance, I've done something to the robot and I'm unable to get the ring to spin up. I think at this point in time, it's that one of the wheels has popped out sideways a little bit and has jammed into the ring and is stopping the ring from moving. Because you can see here that one of the wheels is not turning at all and the other one is. So I've kind of jammed that wheel in there and it's just stopping everything from moving, which is not good. So between fights here, I ended up hot gluing the ring, or hot gluing the wheels onto the motors, and obviously lost this fight. So my second fight is in the non-destructive league, and again it is against Dynamo. Once again, Dynamo is being used as a lone robot here because it was supposed to be a completely different fight, but the person who I was supposed to be fighting had some issues with their transmitter, so in the end I ended up fighting Dynamo as kind of an extra fill-in fight, I guess, which was a little interesting because it meant that Microdot here ended up fighting more times than most other robots in this competition, because I then did actually end up fighting the robot I was supposed to be fighting after this. But this one was a pretty heavy pushing match. I was very grateful that Dynamo was not being driven by its original driver, because James, Dynamo's original driver, is actually quite a good driver and usually has me on the ropes a lot more than this guy did. I wasn't great through a lot of this fight, but I did have some good moments here and some good pushing back and forth. I kind of proved once again that the silicon wheels are pretty good. However, I really need to add a lip or something to the top wedge of Microdot here, because as you can see, normally if I get in underneath him, he's able to drive up over top of me and just get out of the way or get out of my grip, which is not great. So I really do need to do something so I can hold on to robots a little bit better with the old triple wedge. There was a few times where he got onto me and then a few times where I got onto him. Admittedly, this wedge, it was printed ages ago. It's seen quite a number of fights, so it's not anywhere near as close to the floor as it used to be. It's been taken out by weapons and all sorts of things through the years. So, not through the years, through the months that it's been fighting. I still do like the robot. I probably should, make a few kind of minor design changes to it and reprint the chassis a couple of times, I reckon, just to improve it and help with the fights. As you can see, this is a pretty evenly matched fight. There wasn't a whole lot going on because, of course, it is just a good old-fashioned push fight. There was a few times where I got caught on him and he got caught on me, but it kind of just ended up being a bit of a back and forth shoving match on this one. I think we're less than a minute to go at this point in time, and I am starting to get a little bit of an upper hand as I kind of work out how this guy drives, because I'm pretty sure this guy was actually quite new to the whole thing, so his driving was a little erratic for the first part of the tournament there. And then we're down to 30 seconds now, so it's a case of having to make a play at this point in time. As you can see, there is one open pit in the other corner that I got pitted into last time, and thankfully the pit over there is actually a closed pit, so you can't get in there unless you're kind of like thrown up and over. But this fight then comes all the way down to the wire and is a draw. Okay, so then the third fight is up against Brick, who is actually who I was supposed to be fighting just before. Now, Brick is actually done by Chris, who fights in Adelaide as well. So far, I've fought three Adelaide robots, and as you can see, Brick here is made out of Lego, which is quite a hilarious concept, but this was just a kind of trial fight, I guess, for Brick. Brick isn't even glued together yet, and as you can see, it didn't work as well as I think Chris wanted it to, and I pitted it pretty easily. Okay, so third fight is back to make like a tree, and going into this fight, even though I glued the wheels onto the actual weapon shafts with some hot glue, I was still having issues, as you can see here, getting the ring to spin up. I kept trying, and it was jamming up still. So I didn't really know exactly what was going on here, but what I did know is that the ring just refused to spin up for this entire fight. So I ended up burning a lot of battery juice, kind of running around here, attempting to get this ring to spin up, and then just end up giving up and spinning on the spot a little bit, trying to see if I could get some momentum into the ring, but it wasn't overcoming whatever friction it was, and then I got pitted. And my fifth fight for the day was again in the non-destructive league with Microdot against a ladybug robot, which this thing, it looks really, really cool, and I completely understand why it's in non-destructive. Unfortunately, it ended up in the pit, and it was a very short fight. Okay, so here we are for the sixth fight, and I finally worked out why the ring was not spinning up in the previous fights. It was because the O-ring that drives the ring was getting caught on the actual bolts that hold the motor in place. So that was where the friction was. It was actually the motor was having trouble turning. So I got it working here, and as you can see, the motor did spin up and the ring spun up, and I got a few actual hits in with the flail weapon, which is quite surprising. Also, as you can see, my opponent is a shrapnel clone. So the files for shrapnel are actually up on Thingiverse, and you can go ahead and download them, and a couple of people had done that here. And yeah, unfortunately that meant that this was quite a strong bot, and it took my ring off pretty easily. Also, as you can see, one of the flails did actually come off. That's probably what helped with getting rid of the ring, was that the whole ring was unbalanced because one section had a flail and one did not. And then as you can see here, I got caught on top of my ring, but I was still able to move by spinning my wheels and actually also spinning up my weapon motor. By having my weapon motor spun up, I was still able to move around the arena just slightly, so thankfully I wasn't counted out. But also, at the same time, my ring is gone and my opponent has a big weapon, which it's now using to help, well, start by freeing me up from there, but also take some pieces out of my robot, which is not great. But at the same time, I did not want to concede defeat here. I wanted to fight this out. I wanted to see what I could do. And the backside of the robot is actually pretty well protected. There is a pretty big wall of PLA back there that I can use as a bit of defense, I guess, when the ring isn't there. But realistically, while the ring's not there, I'm in a little bit of trouble. There's not a whole lot that I can actually do. And yeah, the robot's a little bit too nimble at this point. I think I might actually have to decrease the speed of those wheels. At the moment, I'm running 50 to 1s, but I might swap them over to 75 to 1s eventually in the future. Yeah, and then I end up on top of my ring again and start kind of running around with the ring a little bit, which is not good. Also, my weapon motor takes a few good shots here, and when I pulled it out of the arena, it was a little bit worse for wear. Also, he actually manages to hit the bolts that hold the weapon motor in place, and as you can see right now, the weapon motor has completely and totally come out. So I'm kind of stuck on the ring. Thankfully, he pushes it a little bit before my countdown finishes, and I am able to still move just a little bit, and then once again able to keep going. We're at 30 seconds left at this point, so I decided I wanted to kind of try and stick this out, see if I could go for the draw. on this one. And yeah, I mean, I'm kind of hanging out all over the place, but something seems to go wrong with his weapon, and he kind of gets a little unstable, so I was able to stick it out and hold on until the very end of the fight. So it ends up as a draw. Fight number 7 was a bit of a familiar experience. It was up against Dynamo. So I'd fought Dynamo twice already so far, but Dynamo is actually now being driven by its actual driver. And as you can see, the ring kind of disappeared very quickly there, purely because I upgraded the flails. I added some extra weight to those flails, and yeah, one hit on Dynamo, the chains or the rubber bands holding that all together broke, or on one of them, and the whole robot just kind of, or the whole ring came unbalanced and got thrown off. And then here I'm getting almost pushed into the pits, but thankfully the silicon wheels are holding me, and I managed to stay out of the pits in this fight, which, I mean, I'm not really sure if there's anything I can do against Dynamo. As I mentioned before, Dynamo, when James is driving it, is quite a formidable robot. He is quite a good driver, and as you can see, he's kind of pushing me around all over the place right now. The only thing that's helping me is that the robot is round and is quite twitchy. As I said, it's quite fast, so I can, get away from him a little bit easier when he's pushing me, because it's pretty easy to spin on the spot and just drive away from a push, which is nice. And it's also, yeah, he's not getting a good grip on me because of the round shape of the robot. Now, at this point, he's kind of getting a little bit frustrated at me, and somewhere around here, he decides that trying to get my ring back away from the pit and push it over to me and get me stuck on my ring is going to be the best strategy, because of course that has worked in the past. I do get stuck on my own ring, and that does actually get me completely immobilized, because if I get stuck in the wrong spot, I get completely high-sided, and it just doesn't go all that well for me. So you can see he's still kind of giving me a bit of a shove around, but he did go and have a look at that ring earlier in the fight, and he will go back there again in just half a second here. We're about a minute left to go in this fight, and it's been a bit of a, well, I was going to say back and forth pushing match, but I'm really not doing anything here. I'm just kind of running away and hoping I don't go in the pits. Yeah, I'm actually having a little bit of issues, and then here we go. He goes for the ring and falls in the hole. So, Make Like a Tree now actually has a win. It's incredible. 8th fight for the day, and I'm actually up against a bot bits pusher. So, having come over to Melbourne with the idea that I was going to fight some different robots, I've really only fought one completely brand new design that I've never fought before, which was a little bit interesting. But as you can see, I'm just kind of pushing this bot bits flipper around all over the place. It's pretty easy to do. This wedge was actually designed to kind of get rid of some of those kind of control and flip type robots, and I do end up just pitting him pretty quickly there. And this final fight is actually the finals of the non-destructive. It is a 3-way fight for first and second. So first and second are the only trophied positions in this league. So we are basically fighting it out to see who gets what trophies. And here we go. I end up trying to get this guy from Melbourne in the pits, and I end up shoved from behind by Dynamo. So I kind of just sit here. I turn my motors off now. I'm just like, well, I'm going to do nothing. And then, of course, the inevitable happens. I pit the person in front of me, and Dynamo pits me. So therefore, I ended up with second for the non-destructive. And then the final thing for the day was an all-in destructive rumble. And as you can see, I spun up, but then lost my ring pretty quickly there. It then got torn off by a drum spinner. And I knew that if I stuck around in here very long, I was going to end up just in a whole lot of pieces. I've already had some pieces ripped off my chassis at this point, and I try and work my way over to the pits, and it just doesn't work very well. I was having some control issues, and I finally managed to get myself down the pit so that I can take no more damage and just sit back and enjoy the fact that there are now 3 horizontal spinners and a drum spinner all in there, all at the same time. Oh, and there's actually another little vert in there as well. So this is a bit of an interesting one to watch. You can see there is a lot of carnage going on. Shrapnel is being quite dominant. The actual original shrapnel in the red there being quite dominant, taking lots of pieces out of lots of different robots. and just, yeah, kind of taking no prisoners out there. Manages to completely destroy that weapon, which is quite a lot of fun. And then he, of course, jumps into the pit, because that's the easiest way to not take any more damage when you lost your weapon in this type of thing. You want to just go into the pit. And then once again, shrapnel doing even more damage, removing a backplate this time round. But I think it actually, oh no, it didn't lose its weapon in the process. It is still going well. So it's still out there and doing damage, which is quite cool to see. Of course, he can't actually self-right, so he can only hit things that are up at his height, and then manages to get himself put in the pit by a bit of rebound. That is, of course, the one big problem with big spinning weapons like that, especially horizontal spinning weapons, is that that bounce back can really kill you. You can end up kind of ping-ponging yourself around the arena and going down a pit if there is a pit open, especially in this case where there is a just permanently open pit and it doesn't actually activate partway through the match. That's kind of why I like the arena that we normally fight in at ARC. It gives you kind of a full minute or so to do the damage you need to do with your spinning weapons before you have this risk of falling in the pit. Yeah, and I think at this point we're probably going to end this Rumble here because I think it's pretty clear from this who won this. There are 3 basically disabled robots and 1 drum spinner left in the arena. So I think time does end up getting cold on this, but it's pretty obvious who actually gets the win in this case. It is the little drum spinner. It actually has an aluminium drum, which I was quite surprised about. It's quite a soft material for a drum in this weight class. But there you go. That is the end of the day. So there we go. That is the wrap up for my little trip over to Melbourne and the fights therein. So I got this nice little trophy for 2nd place in the non-destructive. This thing is really awesome. And in fact, I'm kind of tempted actually to either find where they got these blades from or take this blade off and turn it into a beta weight spinner, because that would be hilarious. Actually, I might even be able to get that in an ant weight. I don't know. I'd have to work out how heavy that blade is and what I could do with that. But yeah, so Microdot ended up doing pretty well in that round, and of course, hero of the day, Make Like a Tree won a fight! Yes! I mean, completely, yeah, not my fault. It wasn't to do with anything to do with the ring spinner. It was all to do with my opponent accidentally falling down the pit. But he's won one now, which is awesome. The flails, yeah, I don't think the flails really worked all that well. I think realistically, they probably would have worked a little bit better if I wasn't using rubber bands to hold them on, but the rubber bands were all I had in the very quick time limit that I had to get this whole thing back together, because of course I was focusing on those featherweights before this event. So yeah, I think it should be possible to make a flail spinner out of like in ant weight form, but rubber bands to hold those flail tips on is not the greatest idea in the world. Also, there is some really, really nice damage now on the front of this brushless motor that I use to spin this weapon up. It does actually still spin, surprisingly enough, but it's just got a little bit of damage up the top there. Nice little nick caused by that shrapnel clone. Now, final thing here for this day is that whole event was actually done in a kind of like laser tag, go-karting, mini golf, bowling, like it was just a kind of bazaar of things that were there. Just like a big party destination almost, in terms of like having like a 13-year-old's party there. You could do almost anything you like. Including they had some arcade games. So during the day before this event, I was actually playing a few arcade games and won myself a little Optimus Prime mask. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is, of course, we have Will It Bot on this channel. So I'm thinking that we're going to Will It Bot with Optimus Prime. So what is actually happening is next week is supposed to be an ARC meet rundown video, but I was thinking that that's kind of like 3 fight event videos all in one go, which I don't really like. I'd kind of like to have a little bit of separation. So of course I'm still going to go to the ARC fight, but I'm going to do a Will It Bot for Optimus Prime for next week, and you'll see the fights from this next week, and then the week after I will show the actual fight breakdown for the robots that I take for the actual ARC meet. So I'll probably just throw this guy in non-destructive, I reckon, because it's going to be a bit of a weird robot anyway. So I really don't want to do anything super important with it, because it will just get blown to pieces. Like if I put it in destructive or 2v2, that mask is just going to get shattered. So we'll throw that in non-destructive and we'll have the fights at the end of that video, and then we'll have the ARC fight breakdown the week after. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and I will see you next week where we build this into a combat robot.